Hey guys, just a quick note before we begin this show. We had a few technical issues while we were recording, specifically with the video feeds from Josh and Jeremy. The audio and video got out of sync, and we couldn't sort it out, couldn't fix it. I'm going to try to fix it where I can in this show, but it fluctuated throughout, so there's no simple fix for it. So you're probably going to notice some delays there with their video feeds. So I apologize for that. We'll have it fixed hopefully going forward, but just wanted to let you know. All right, thanks, and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, as you know, there's been a lot of cancellations due to the coronavirus, and a lot of shows are getting canceled, but we're not one of them because we don't fear the coronavirus. We've got something much worse, dangerous levels of sex appeal. This is the PC Perspective Podcast, episode 577, being recorded Thursday, March 5th, 2020. I'm Jim Tanis.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Sebastian Peak.
And I'm guest hosting Brett Van Sproonberg.
Yes, we've got Brett here. If you've been watching the last year or so, you might remember Brett. He's originally introduced to us through our good friend and former colleague, Alan Malventano. And Brett and his wife, Michelle, were the ones who helped us get our website revamped and brought into the 21st century. And Brett, of course, has been helping us behind the scenes with the web hosting, web development, all the technical stuff that we don't have the skill for. But we're glad you could join us. We used to record these pretty much regularly on a Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. We did it last week. And then, of course, my fault again this week. We had to postpone again. But we generally have a show for you at some point most weeks. And if you want to join us live, you want to watch live, because we stream them as we record them live on YouTube and Twitch, you can subscribe to our live notification newsletter at pcpro.com/subscribe. And we use that only to notify you an hour or two before we go live when the stream's going to be, or to let you know if there's going to be a delay. And you can always follow those live streams at pcpro.com/live. We've got the embedded YouTube video right there, and chat, and also join our Discord community. We've got that going 24/7, and it gets pretty active during the live streams as well. You can find a invite link to the Discord feed in all of the podcast show notes, and those show notes are all listed at pcpro.com/podcasts. Well, let's jump in today. We've got a bunch of stuff we've got to talk about, and we don't want to run too long.
You know how I stayed away from getting sick?
How's that?
Whenever I go to Denver Airport, you know, they have those moving walkways. Well, I just stand at the end, and I put my tongue on the rail thing, and I just get like hundreds of people.
Yes.
And I don't have to move. I don't have to do anything crazy. Just, it's all delivered to me. And
they do the same thing on public transit in Vancouver.
Because they're saying this is so bad because it's new. We don't have any immunities to it, and just by statistical probability, somebody's going to develop immunity after enough exposure. So put your tongue on that railing.
On that rail. I get a few strange looks, but every once in a while somebody's like, "Hey, that's a good idea," and they go to the other one. And
you're going to live forever. Oh
yeah.
You're going to be doing this.
What the drug dog is most interested in, by the way.
Oh man! All right. Well, let's jump into the news. So, big news today was that AMD held its Financial Analyst Day, and they've got a website. We'll have the link to this in our show notes. They kind of put they had an in-person event. They live streamed parts of it. They had a bunch of presentations from AMD executives. We'll have a link to the presentations and stuff here. We'll also be showing some slides from those events. But the key here is that AMD, this was their first Financial Analyst Day since, was it 2017? They had one right upon the launch, right before the launch of the first generation Ryzen. And so they kind of used this event as an example of showing the progress over these few years, because that event was really the turnaround for AMD. They went from a far second place competitor to Intel and NVIDIA, but I mean, looking at both their CPU and GPU, obviously the CPU's been a stronger play than the GPU, but both have improved significantly in this time. And so they went through and kind of looked at how they got to where they are now and gave us a roadmap of where they're planning to go. Some of it we knew, some of it was clarified for us. But big news in front, if I can pull up some of the slides here. So these are a selection of some of the slides from the event. The big news was that financially they're looking very, very good, and the stock, amidst this huge sell-off or volatility in the U.S. markets over the coronavirus, AMD stock weathered pretty well. It was up a high of I think as much as 20% yesterday, amongst a 1,000-point loss on the Dow. It did fall a little bit, but we'll see more activity, I'm sure, in the markets coming on Friday here.
And just a real quick thing, and this is serious. This is probably the most interesting thing that she talked about. Was they asked her about how supplies are coming in and how's the channel looking, and she said that right around Chinese New Year was the worst, but otherwise they have really no problems. And if you look at like Newegg and Amazon, things that you thought were going to go, I mean, that were starting to look like the prices were going up, now they're hitting back to normal. And so it seems like supply chain is not nearly as affected by coronavirus as we were expecting. I know that China has kind of lowered some of its emergency levels in a couple of areas. So, I mean, maybe that's a positive thing, but it was interesting to hear AMD say that, their supply channels were doing perfectly fine, even with this coronavirus, even though they are not talking about financials in view of any other potential issues that coronavirus could do if it comes back with a passion or makes itself worse, mutates, whatever.
TSMC is saying the same thing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
They're not seeing any impact whatsoever on their supply channels. And, well, I was going to say who's their main customer, but that would be like literally everyone in the world right now. But AMD is a good chunk of it.
Yeah, and we do know that there have been some statements about supply issues. Like I think Intel, for example, was talking about Tiger Lake availability, and one of their executives said that their projections were made before the coronavirus was fully accounted for. So that could slip. But yeah, as Josh said, Lisa Su in giving her speech has said that they're looking good in terms of at least the rest of this year. Again, assuming no significant worsening or changes here.
I wonder how this has affected their laptop rollout. And I'm sorry to, I know we got a lot of stuff to cover because, like Lenovo, Dell, others, you try to buy a laptop from them and it's like,
yeah, I mean,
month and a half.
That is a good point. We haven't heard anything specific about delays, but with the last few platform launches for both AMD and Intel, it was a slow rollout. Intel, in the case of having that difficult transition to 10 nanometer and getting Ice Lake availability, and AMD just in not having enough launch partners in the market for Ryzen 3000 mobile. But yeah, we'll have to see. So far, we haven't heard anything good or bad on that front. So we're expecting at some point towards the end of this month to start getting some more details and then having those products at least get into our hands in April. We'll see though. But looking at AMD's financial performance, they kind of charted, their average, what is that, compounded annual growth rate, CAGR?
I believe so.
Okay, well, so they're looking from 2015 through 2019 of an average 14%, and looking ahead, they're increasing to 20% growth rate with a gross margin in excess of 50%. So these are real big, important numbers for AMD, and this is what that initial stock market response was based upon, was this very confident projections. Looking at their revenue increasing steadily. There's also a slide here, and obviously gross margins another big factor there, which is of course impacted by the chiplet approach, which allows them to maximize production and in terms of getting products to market. And of course here, the debt versus cash, seeing the debt that saddled the company not that long ago being very quickly paid off, and seeing the company grow and strengthen. So very, very good financially for the company. And like I said, we'll see further response in terms of the company's stock price, although with the markets being so volatile, who knows? But then looking at product news, they kind of broke it down between desktop, GPU, and enterprise, with GPU touching both enterprise and consumer desktop. And they had some slides here looking at, how we knew Ryzen first gen was a good product. It was a real good value product. And as you took Zen 1 into the AGDT space, it really opened up some new opportunities there. Zen 2 which is Ryzen 3000, launched last July, was very, very popular. And then they're projecting, if you're watching the video version, a significant increase in performance for Zen 3, which will be Ryzen 4000 on the desktop. And so they're very aggressive looking at performance going further here. Sorry, I'm trying to manage the slides here. They also laid out the roadmap for GPU and CPU. You've got Zen 2 and Zen 3. One thing that they clarified, though, was earlier slides had pointed out that Zen 2 is 7 nanometers, which is the big process advantage for AMD. Earlier slides had said Zen 3 would be 7 nanometers plus, and they took that off of these slides. I don't know if you guys noticed that, and they had mentioned that there was some clarification there because they were concerned that there'd be confusion that by labeling it 7 nanometer plus, it would be TSMC's EUV process, and it's not. So they didn't want to mix that up. So it's going to be.
We all know that pluses are lies now.
Well, sure.
Just add more pluses. That's what that means.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be an evolution, though.
It is going to be an evolution.
It's supposed to be.
It's not EUV because they're a high volume kind of group, and EUV right now is still. I don't think it's high volume. I mean, it's getting they're doing better with wafers an hour, but yeah, I don't think that AMD wants to hang their hat on EUV at this point. But yeah, I think it is going to be an evolution and an improvement on TSMC 7 nanometer, but it still uses immersion. 180 nanometer litho.
Yeah. So so there is an improvement, but it's not. I think I'm not sure what they were hoping to signify, but they took the plus off. I guess is the point there. But there is an improvement there. And then looking forward to Zen 4, which is projected to be 5 nanometers. So Zen 3, they said, will hit end of this year. By the end of this year, I think we'll see it before Epic, but within 2020, according to plan. And then 5 nanometers, it's not clear if it's end of 2021 or early 2022. If you're looking at these charts, it's the chart range goes to 2022. But if they're launching Zen 3 at the end of this year, and if everything goes well, we should expect it in that time frame, end of 2021, early 2022.
I think we're going to see Epic first, just the way.
Oh, you will? Okay.
I think so. I don't think it's going to be desktop. I think that they're going to go high margin as possible with this new product until they can really get things rolling with it. And it's probably going to. AMD did it kind of backwards with Zen, how they usually did it. I mean, they always did the server version first as they're ramping up production, get the higher margins, get better money out of each chip made. And they didn't do that with Zen, but they sort of did it with Zen 2, but Epic was kind of slow in rolling out as compared. But I think that they're probably going to go back, and Epic's going to get the Zen 3 before desktop, and certainly before mobile. Well, before mobile.
Yeah. I said that because in their slides, they said in certain areas, they said Zen would be later 2020. I'm sorry, desktop would be later 2020 and server would be late. So I assumed late meant after later, but you could be right. I
don't know. I don't have any inside information. Yeah. That's just kind of what I was getting from the gist of their conversation.
Mm-hmm. So looking at GPUs real quick here too, they kind of talked about where they've gone on desktop GPUs. They had a slide which was interesting. Brett noticed it.
Is that a blower?
It's a little.
Is that a blower?
No, it doesn't look
it's a
like
little
it.
bit more. A little bit more Dream Team look to it.
Yeah. So for the audio listeners, we're talking about a slide that had a very it's covered in shadows, but it's a peak of a rendered GPU design that is clearly new, but potentially something that we could see with next generation GPUs, Radeon GPUs from AMD. And they talked about the RDNA switch, GCN to RDNA, how it offered a significant performance gain in terms of performance per clock and power efficiency and everything. They highlighted how they're expanding their market. They're in desktop and enthusiast gaming PCs. They're on Macs. Apple uses AMD GPUs exclusively, where they offer.
Jim, if I could just interject the fact that they actually bragged about the fact that they bring the fastest graphics ever to the Apple Macintosh. I just want to say that they did brag about that. So
it's true.
Don't forget that. Yep.
It is true that when Apple artificially limits availability of web drivers, then yes, it is the fastest ever, because that's all you can use, unless you want to run a what was the last OS 10 or Mac OS?
High Sierra.
Was it High Sierra? So if you want to stick with High Sierra, you can use your Maxwell and Polaris, or not Polaris, Pascal GPUs.
Pascal.
But they highlighted that, and then they obviously are excited about being the exclusive GPU for next gen consoles, the PS5 and Xbox Series X. And they talked then about what's next. We have RDNA. They're going to go to RDNA 2, and like the Zen 3 Leap, it will stay on 7 nanometers, but with improvements. They're looking at performance per watt improvements, and more significantly, and this kind of plays into what they had to do if they were going to be in these consoles, is they're going to be introducing hardware accelerated ray tracing, variable rate shading, and other features that they thus far are not part of their portfolio. NVIDIA was out of the gate first, arguably too early, even because of the lack thus far of true ray tracing, true titles that can truly take advantage of ray tracing. So we'll see if this is the move that finally brings all of that mainstream. Although we have no indication yet in terms of performance. We know that there's a big performance hit with RTX on NVIDIA's side, so we'll see how it works on the AMD side. Although they did say that the Microsoft DirectX ray tracing demo is working internally and seems to be going well. So we'll see what happens there. And then, of course, looking ahead, they're looking at RDNA 3 as we get near 2022, which will then be the successor there. And they didn't specify manufacturing node there. They just called it an advanced node. So we'll see where that goes.
Remember, their slides were 1080 and 1440p as if nobody owned a monitor larger than that. But they did put a marker down on their next gen RDNA 2 saying we're going to be, solid 4K gaming. So they did say that.
And they're looking, here's a slide they gave about looking at how RDNA gave 50% performance per watt improvement over GCN, and then they're expecting an additional 50% improvement over RDNA for RDNA 2. And here's a slide just highlighting the ray tracing features that'll be coming. And then they did talk obviously about data center and the big leap that they took from first to second gen EPYC. And so right now we have EPYC Rome, and it's everywhere. They just had a big supercomputer win announced earlier this week. So they're in I think 2 out of the 3 exascale supercomputers now. So Intel in the other, which is surprising. NVIDIA is not in any exascale system right now, I believe. So it's a race between AMD and Intel for those very high performance supercomputers. And then they gave a look going forward for their EPYC roadmap. You've got the Rome now at 7 nanometers. Again, like the desktop, they're going to go to 7 nanometers, an improved 7 nanometer process. But again, for whatever reason, they took the plus off the slide. And so that will be Zen 3 Milan that Josh was talking about will hit later this year, potentially before desktop. And then looking forward to Genoa Zen 4 at 5 nanometers, they specified. Then again at the end of 2021, early 2022 time frame. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, the last thing about GPUs is I believe they said that the era of repurposed enterprise level graphics or compute graphics like the Radeon 7 coming to the desktop is over. They have enough money to split the teams now. And they've got dedicated teams in enterprise and dedicated desktop for GPU development. So they are pretty serious about it. Yeah. So you won't see a Radeon 7 type style repurposed enterprise graphics or system, repurposed to the desktop again. Well, that's what they say.
Right, and that's what I was just about to talk. I put this under the enterprise category.
Oh, sorry.
I guess it could have gone under the GPU category.
Way to go, Brett.
I know, I blew it.
But they have, right, and so we have RDNA for the graphics on the desktop, and as Brett was saying, AMD announced that they're having the CDNA architecture, which will be enterprise or data center focused cards. So we don't the things you don't need for gaming, they can focus on expanding and maximizing performance for enterprise data center workloads. Yeah, so no more of those not compromised cards, but what would you call the Radeon 7 hybrid compute focused? I mean, what am I going to put in my high performance Hackintosh now?
Well, not a 16 gigabyte compute card anymore.
But
say goodbye to HBM.
Good. It's so good in DaVinci Resolve. But
and NVIDIA will just call you naughty for trying to mix drivers and cards.
Yeah, that's true.
11 gigabytes should be good enough for anybody.
Okay, Bill Gates.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
And then they had another quick slide. Now that they've established this CDNA architecture going forward, they're planning out for CDNA 2, which will extend to exascale, compatibility. But I mean, they're going to get to exascale already, but this will enhance that going forward. And again, they didn't specify the node there; they just called it an advanced node. So we'll see where they end up there. But any other thoughts?
Did you go over Infinity Fabric 3?
Oh no, I didn't have a slide on that.
Nope, not yet.
Yeah.
So they're getting to the true original promise of Infinity Fabric, right, Josh?
Yes, and it's really exciting because it's all coherent. So you've got coherent memory in between all the CPUs, which there are hundreds of them seemingly, and then all of the GPUs. So you have this massive, large shared memory pool that's addressable. And this has been a promise since the heterogeneous computing type folks, and they finally implemented with version 3 of Infinity Fabric, and it's fantastic. I mean, NVIDIA's kind of got their own little thing going. What is that called again? You're not helping me out.
Nothing.
Oh.
The what?
Something. Anyway, NVIDIA's got kind of. It seems like this one's a little bit more, all-in-one, wrapped in a nice bow. No, stop it. You're a bad person. But anyway, so they're going to be implementing this on this exascale thing, El Capitan, where each socket will have like 8 GPUs attached pretty much directly to it through Infinity Fabric. And I mean, they never talk much about Infinity Fabric. I mean, the actual nuts and bolts working of it, but they just say, well, we've improved it and we've added features and we've done this and that and that and that. And we still don't know what the hell. I mean, we have some basics of what it looks like. But again, this is AMD acting like a much larger enterprise company than they have been in a long time. And of course, Infinity Fabric initially came from C-Micro, who had those ultra dense computer servers with hundreds of CPUs. And they've just continued to work. NVLink, you bastards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Bio, because
it's not really the same thing.
My brain is too filled with spite to think of it.
Yeah, anyway.
It is.
We should probably pause here and let Jeremy hit the beer a little bit harder before we continue. Make sure he can level out. It's been a rough week.
Gotta lubricate those brain cells. The little malt product.
But anyway, so that's a brief overview of the things that AMD announced here at their Financial Analyst Day. Like I said, we'll have a link to their site. They've got full copies of all of the slide presentations and links to the webcast that you can listen to if you want to hop in there. Very interesting stuff and a lot of positive reaction. I know Pat Moorhead, who's an analyst that really knows his stuff and has worked with Ryan in the past, back when he was still a journalist. He was very high on AMD, so on their reaction here. So keep an eye on that. And if you're holding AMD or if you're interested in investing, it seems like amidst this turmoil, They seem to be doing pretty well.
It was very nice of them to refrain from doing a Nelson laugh pointed at Intel when they started talking about security features of the new processors. Which, yes, again, we linked to, we don't need to go into, but is definitely worth mentioning.
Yes.
Yeah. And when I'll just go ahead and go because that's what I want to do.
Okay, you do that.
You know, AMD pushed hard to get Ryzen 3000 series out and the chipsets and all the issues that they had, because I think that they really thought that they only had a pretty limited window of opportunity against Intel, that Intel would come kind of raging back with an improved 10 nanometer process and all of these products, and it's going to be 2006 all over again. And, you know, they took their bruises and they eventually got things so that, you know, Ryzen 3000 series, I mean, they're consistently performing high levels. The X570 motherboards seemingly have a lot of the issues ironed out with them. I've run one now for a month, and I'm ecstatically happy about it. And now with all the bad news from Intel, it's like their window of opportunity has broadened dramatically, but they haven't slowed down. And they still look like they're executing at a pretty high level. And especially with, you know, a next generation EPYC coming out later this year, another Ryzen 4000 series desktop, and then Navi RDNA 2. I mean, it's just, the company just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. And I think that there is a lot of excitement in the company that they're doing as well as they are. And I mean, it really shows. And I think Lisa's a very good CEO and kind of visionary of what they're trying to do. So it's going to be fun to watch in the next couple of years to see how exactly Intel responds, and if AMD is still able to keep that accelerator pushed to the floor, and if they don't have any hiccups of their own. So so far things are looking good.
Yeah, and as you said, you know, they're taking advantage. They're not slowing down, and they have to. They really have to, because Intel.
Yeah, they're making the hay when the sun's shining.
Yeah, cue that leaked image of the piles of cash. I mean, they were so far ahead financially, and they have so many other sources of revenue. As we saw, you know, all this bad news, and they still turned in a fantastic quarter financially. So AMD's got to really take every advantage. They can't afford to slow down. They can't afford to have a hiccup, even if Intel takes, you know, as long as they have to get their act together. But speaking of Intel, we've got on the mobile side, we've got the new laptops coming out. We've got 10th gen Intel 45-watt TDP processors, base TDP. We just got to clarify because nobody runs them there. And then we've got the new Zen 2 Ryzen 4000 mobile parts coming out. And those are the top of the line there as far as the 4800H. And we have some leaks that came out this week. The first is the Intel side. Their top end part will be the i9 10980HK. And here's a Geekbench leak that. I'm sorry.
Not CV.
Not CV.
You're going with HK.
Oh, right, sure. So this is your 8-core 16-thread part. So it's the same core and thread counts as the current 9th gen counterparts, but it's still the same basic. Still the same basic architecture, but they've further refined because Intel continues to really be stuck on that 14 nanometers. So they've really refined it. And where is it here? The big thing here is they peaked, according to this leak, at nearly 5.3 gigahertz. And again, that's that microsecond turbo jump, but that's, you know, pretty much the highest we've ever seen in a mobile form factor like this with at that power level. So that's pretty impressive, and that gives it a single core Geekbench score of about 6,300 and a multi-core score of about 32,000. But AMD, you know, that 4800's coming, and we've also got some leaks on that, courtesy of prolific tweet user AppySack. He posted some 4800 scores compared to the 10980HK, as well as the step down from that'll be coming out, the i7 10750H. And you can see here it's holding its own. Now, actually, these scores here are a little lower than what we just saw in that previous leak, but on that multi-score core in particular, it's neck and neck. It's looking to be very very competitive, which is what we've seen as AMD has slowly closed that IPC gap. They're getting very good at matching Intel in the one place that they thus far still led. So what do you guys think about that?
I need to see it, and
Okay.
I need them to shorten the names.
You can buy a Dell with Ubuntu.
Sure.
Well, you can order one.
Well, yeah,
I don't know you get it, but you can order one.
it's true.
And so, you know, as we've seen with last, you know, as is always the case, this all depends on thermal constraints. What the chassis that these manufacturers put these processors in, the kind of cooling and heat and noise tolerances that they choose to enforce. So we'll see, you know, how these perform in the actual real world scenarios that we have them when they hit the market. So we'll keep an eye on that and we'll see. But thus far, the point, I guess the overall point is last year, Ryzen, even though it made a very good value play in the lower and middle segments, was not the best performer. And this year, that looks like it could change. So we'll keep an eye there. Looking at not the coronavirus, but a different type of threat. Jeremy found for us some interesting security vulnerabilities that use ultrasonic sound waves.
Yeah, no, it's not new. I linked to a few of the classic ones that we've had over the past. But this specific one was a recent one that they did tests on, and they grabbed 17 different devices, 13 Androids, 4 Apples. In all but 2, one was a Huawei, I think the other was an HTC, just by playing ultrasonic sounds that relatively mimic the voice of the person who had trained either the Google Assistant or Siri. They were able to, and as long as you have the voice unlock on your phone, you'd just be walking by. You would never hear anything, but all of a sudden your phone starts reading out your texts on speaker as loud as possibly. Because essentially what they've done is the phone's got a much wider hearing range than you do. It can hear lower than you. It can hear higher than you. It's especially good at hearing higher than you. So your ears are not picking anything up. It is. It's totally hearing your voice, or at least an upscaled approximation of it, because when you get to that point, the frequencies become interesting and less difficult to fake. It's just freaking amusing because we have had a variety that I linked through. The one that most people have heard of is the whole thing that went on with the Cuban embassy, and was that really infrasound, and did it actually hurt people? And the problem is, well, you don't know because it's not going to really leave much evidence, so maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But the fun thing is that with the phone, you kind of know. And it happens. There's a variety of ones where you can you can modify a song. And to your ears, you might hear the slightest little warble in pitch or something on a single instrument. Your Echo, your Siri, your Google Assistant has totally just heard a full command to go out and buy 100,000 bottles of Purex at whatever cost on the Amazon. It's kind of a little bit ridiculous that this is still going on, that they haven't been able to figure out how to limit the frequencies at which they'll accept commands, because it's not like most of us can suddenly just start screaming ultrasonically, unless you broke something really important for someone or you're under the age of 2. But yeah, it's just a new one. They're working on patching it. The meantime, is it really a bright idea to have your own voice unlock your phone? That will mitigate it right there.
Yeah, just turn the feature off.
Yeah. I feel I need to point out that hand sanitizer is unavailable from Amazon right now.
Great.
Oh, I bet you that you can convince it to pay a lot of money for that.
Yeah, there's always
for delivery in 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah. $300 an ounce.
All right. So as Jeremy said, just turn that crap off, just to be on the safe side. All right. Next up, we've got the return of a product that was teased quite a while ago. As you know, there's a lot of concept products and things first unveiled at trade shows that take forever to hit the market if they ever do. And this is one of them. It's the Seasonic CONNECT. And this was first teased by Seasonic. I think it was Computex 2018. Let's see. Jeremy wrote that up for us way back then. And what this is it's a pretty interesting concept and pretty useful if it works as well as they advertise. It's a power supply that it's a standard form factor power supply. So you put that into the part of your case where that goes normally, and then it's got this bundle of cables that wrap around to a hub that fits onto the back side where your cable management is. And that's where all of your power supply cables to the various components will plug in. And this allows you to not have to bring any power cables into the front visible, if you have a case with the window, side of the case. So it's really good for cleaning up cable mess. Also, a lot of times, especially if you have a big case or if you're having to route things unusually for aesthetic purposes, you might have to get extensions or buy longer cables. Well, because this is all in the back, they don't have to go as far. So you can get away with shorter cables just in general. You may not have to buy those extensions. So a very interesting piece of hardware. Again, it was teased at Computex, and they've now, it's not for sale as far as I could see just yet, but they've launched the product page on the Seasonic website. And so you can head over there and check out the specs and the data sheet manual, and get, there's more pictures on it. So something to look into. It's a 750 watt. Let's see. It's an 80 plus gold. I forget the wattage, but it's not their, yeah, it's okay. It's 750. It's not their top of the line, most efficient, most highest end base power supply, but pretty sufficient for most builds, even high-end builds, and it'll give you that nice look.
750 is overkill at this point, almost.
Yeah, that's well, we haven't seen the power numbers on the next-gen Intel.
Well, unless you're running a KS or an HK.
But the Seasonic CONNECT. So again, no pricing just yet, and I haven't seen it actually hit stores or retailer inventory, but that page went live, and Seasonic sent out a note on it to us. So check it out if you're interested, and keep an eye. We should hopefully be seeing this soon. Again, assuming that we continue to not have severe interruptions in the global supply chain.
They actually had shown this. I was in a meeting prior to Computex 2018. I think it was at CES earlier that year about this when they were still developing it. Maybe it was the year before, but they've been working on this for a long time, and it's really the most significant innovation. It's a word that gets overused, but in a long time as far as cable management goes. Because think about this: it's a single device that almost looks like a slim power strip that just fits in the back of a case. And when they were first developing this, I think they were talking about having it as part of like a custom enclosure line, which is problematic anyway, because enclosures is not something you can just jump into. It requires a lot of tooling and development and so forth. But it looks like they've made this streamlined enough that it'll fit into the back of a lot of enclosures as long as they have a minimum amount of cable clearance in the back. And just the idea of being able to feed very short cables from a stacked solution like this behind the motherboard tray is great, because especially if you use cable extensions, you're dealing with an ATX connector with 24 pins, then plugged into another one, which takes up a lot of room that you have to hide behind the motherboard tray. And if you don't use extensions, you generally have a lot more room behind the tray for cable management, but then it doesn't look as nice. So you could use any manner of custom cables with this and would have zero additional bulk back there, which would be really nice. I'm sure they'll have different wattages of this. If this catches on, it'll just be something they probably marry to whatever their high-end lineup is. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a fanless variant of this either.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Mm-hmm. And especially because with fanless, it's all about airflow. And if you don't have all the cables jammed into the front of this thing, because they're all being routed back, you can get that airflow through the window side of the case. That'll just flow through the power supply unobstructed. So, yeah, very, very cool. Very exciting. And as Sebastian said, you think about innovations, like what are the big changes that we see in industries and things like this, and this is one of them. Power supplies have remained. There's been new features, better efficiency, not a lot of huge changes. I think the only other big thing I've seen was last Computex, Asus had that concept motherboard where everything is modular. Yeah. So there's no cables. Like you buy a GPU thing and it just clunks into the motherboard and everything is plug-in modular. But that's a long way off. That was a non-functioning.
Still holding out for my water-cooled one.
Yeah.
Hey, it exists. You can buy one. I think FSP makes one.
Yeah.
I mean, for crying out loud, where's the ATX standard? It's from the PS2 era. This is a PS2 ATX 12 volt. This is that I have a 386 computer on the other side of this room with this format of PSU in it.
Is it running your BBS?
It doesn't do anything useful. It takes up space, but it lets.
So it's running a BBS then.
Yeah, it's never been online that I know of, but
it's the hardware version, Josh.
Oh, you've been online.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking more about I take up space and I'm not very useful.
Oh,
just ask my wife.
Well, she loved you. She'd have thrown you out if she didn't love you.
Well, it's complicated. Kids, it's harder. It's harder to break up when you have kids. Trust me.
All right, Jeremy. Let's change the subject. Apple Pay, or not Apple Pay. Apple had an issue that was a bit of a controversy a couple years ago, where apparently new software updates would slow down older phones, and there was some back and forth on that, and then there were some updates where people said, well, it actually improved things, where they really focused on improving performance on older phones. But there was a class action lawsuit. A court disagreed, at least to a certain extent. And
well, they weren't given a chance to. The court was not given a chance to disagree with that because they settled out of court. Usually that means guilty, guilty, guilty. But, we have to assume their innocence even in the U.S. So because they did interesting feature modifications to their batteries on older phones, if you're in the US and you picked up an iPhone 6 or 7 of any flavor at the point where it was running iOS 10.2.1, or you picked up an iPhone 7 or 7 Plus of 11.2 or later at time of purchase, you can get $25 whole from Apple. Except they've capped their payout at $500 million. Now, I didn't bother to do the math, but I'm betting they sold more iPhones than that. So you're going to want to try and get on this early. As in normal Apple style, they've already settled out of court and said, this is what we're going to do. The lawyers need to figure out how much they're going to get paid first. It's looking somewhere between $90 to $190 million because lawyers are cheap. After that, they're going to start providing a link where you can go and start putting in your request to get the money back. As of this point, and I checked earlier, that there is still no way to try and get your money back at this point. But you will get, up to $25 per iPhone that you bought, as long as money lasts. There's links that describe the exact models. I may have missed one or two. There's specific dates. Essentially, if you bought it after, or like at Christmas time 2017, you're screwed. If you bought it before Christmas, you're good. It's December 21st is the official date, but it's lovely to see that they're actually gonna pay some people. On the other hand, it seems very light for this sort of thing. How much did Apple make last year? It didn't involve millions. It involved billions. So
many
along the lines of Yeah, so it's along the Facebook of, yeah, we did some horrible things. Here's about 5 minutes of our profit for the year.
We'll have a link to the coverage on this. If you have an iPhone that qualifies and you want to pursue that rebate, again, pending approval of this settlement by the district court, just check it out, and they'll hopefully it will be relatively easy to submit your serial number and get that taken care of. Next up, we've got a story of a distributed computing update on the SETI at Home project. Tell us what's going on here, Jeremy.
Well, if you've got a wonderful manager and they kind of figure that if you have 2 people and it's going to take them 100 hours, if you put 20 people at them, it's going to take 10, because that's obviously how math works. Well, when you throw computers at it, it actually is. So in more or less the last 20 years, SETI at Home has gone through 4,110 years of CPU time, which is just utterly brilliant because you don't get paid for it. You're just doing this out of the fact that you're rather interested in it. And yeah, that's my little brag there at the top. To do it in a different way, they've gone through 2.6 times 10 to the 23rd power of floating operation points. Or 1.5 million days of processing, if you like it that way. Regardless, it is an insane amount of computing power that has been tossed at SETI at Home. And they've hit the point where they're like, that's it. We've got enough data from Arecibo and a couple of other radio telescopes. We've run we've sort of organized the data a little bit. And now we're into the analysis phase. So in a way, it sort of sounds like it's the end of SETI at Home. It isn't. It's a scientific experiment. They're on to the final analysis. We're probably not going to find ET. If we do find ET, he's probably been dead for billions of years, because that takes a while to get around the galaxy at the speed of light, let alone the speed of radio, or spread out. But we've discovered pulsars along the way. We've discovered very interesting naturally occurring radio signals. We've twigged other telescopes into the fact that there's probably a friggin' black hole there, because that's what the radio signals we're seeing is some rather interesting decaying particles, which are, broadcasting out in a general sphere radio waves by the time it gets to us. It's amazing. If you look, I'm one of the more impressive things I've done in my life. I am 99.6297th percentile. I have done a huge amount of this chugging. I actually started before the main project moved over to Boink. And the PC Perspective Killer Frogs, who are still sort of around, rank 7 out of 222 teams around the world, by the way. So there's still other projects if you're interested in Boink or folding at home. It's a brilliant thing to do with your machine if you leave it on. You can mine if you want and try to eke out those last couple of pennies as you watch your electrical bill go high. Or you could help map the Milky Way. You could track radio signals, which again, I would love a ride off this planet because there's no intelligent life here. But at the same time, you're mapping the universe. Pulsars are a galactic buoy of, if it's pulsing at this exact thing, I don't care who you are or which arm of the galaxy you're from, you will actually know where the hell that is in reference to other things. So it's just amazing that they've gone through this, and just the sheer computing power of it for people who are interested. You're not getting any money. In fact, you're paying money for your machine and for your electricity, but it's just pure insanity, and it's just brilliant. And we're getting a whole bunch of new, if you follow the link through the register, there's a whole bunch of new searches or new investments going into a variety of very large arrays, and just sort of looking out at the universe and seeing what in the hell is out there, which is also absolutely brilliant. So we're going to see this mutate. It's going to change a little bit. But for now, it's going to be fun to see what SETI has found over these last 2 decades and after. God only knows how many work units have been chugged Arecibo probably pulls down about 35 gigs a day every day, and that's just one.
Yeah, incredible. And but as Jeremy said, by all means, look into this if you want to contribute to various Boink projects, but not if you have a Navi GPU. I don't think that's been fixed yet. We talked about this a few weeks ago. There's an issue with Navi GPUs and the verification of the work units. So I believe they're proactively blocking them if they detect that as your GPU.
Yes.
But
even if you've got your GPU enabled, it will not do it if you've got a Navi.
But just keep that in mind if you're having trouble and you've got Navi, and then hopefully they'll fix that for you.
And if you got some spare flops, the Large Hadron Collider is always looking for some.
Awesome.
There's a stupid amount of data coming out of that thing too.
Let's wrap up the news this week with a couple of game related announcements. So as we said at the beginning of the show, a lot of events are being canceled, but one that wasn't canceled kind of is ironic that it sounds like PAX. Never mind. PAX East happened, and
well, there is a PAX POX.
Oh, okay.
There is always a PAX.
Isn't PAX Latin for peace?
Wow.
I think it is.
Yeah, but not in the way they mean it. Yeah.
Pax Romano. That's peace upon your cheese.
Yes.
Yes. Pax Romana would be the...
All right.
I was hearing it wrong.
Else.
Real quick, Jeremy, what's going on with Baldur's Gate that came out of the PAX East show?
Well, Larian is fondling Baldur's Gate, which I have mixed feelings about because I have yet to beat one of their games. However, I do enjoy it because if you're bored and there's a zombie with a stink cloud coming at you, you can grab a candle out of your pocket, light it, throw it at the zombie, and have it explode. So in a way, it is very much having an enjoyable dungeon master running your game because you can do silly shit like this. The interface is immediately recognizable for anyone who's done a Larian game before, Divinity Original Sin or Original Sin 2 specifically, although some of the others do bear a similar resemblance to it. Now, on the other hand, talking to my father, who is looking at this, who was really excited after we played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 separately and together for the bit of multiplayer that was enabled, he's not going to touch it. It's just too different, and, well, when you're born in 44, it's certainly been a long road. I'm torn. I liked my old D&D. 5th edition couldn't go Intercourse of Penguin, but 1st and 2nd edition, certainly. I'm tempted. I'm going to pick it up. I still need to play a little bit more of the Divinity Sin. I'm very upset by all the people who are complaining that this looks like one of the weird-looking elves from... The Elder Scrolls, because it's not. That is a Githyanki, and if you don't know that, well, then you're not going to have much fun trying to figure out why the Illithids, the Githyanki, and the Githzerai don't get along together, but that's the way it looks like this is going to go. We're probably looking at multiplanar, because that is what they do. There's a wee little bit of a ship that almost looks like Spelljammer, the aborted sort of outer space-ish thing that... a D&D tried to do before they got taken over by Wizards of the West Coast.
TSR.
Yeah, good old TSR. Good old Derek and Gary. It's gorgeous. Looking at the movies, it is utterly gorgeous, and, I loved Black Isle and Bethesda and what they did, but it was never quite as pretty as that. So I'm torn. I'm kind of excited, but at the same time, it's like, they straight out said, we're going to follow D&D rules unless it's not fun for us, in which case we're going to make up our own. So I don't know if you guys grew up playing D&D or did the Baldur's Gate series or anything and have any strong feelings one way or the other.
I never got into it, unfortunately.
2nd and 3rd edition, actually, so...
Okay.
Talking about D&D or Baldur's Gate? Well, wait, wasn't Baldur's Gate based on D&D?
Either.
Rule sets originally?
Yeah, no, I did 2nd edition D&D in the early 90s. In my early college years when I experimented with things like D&D.
Nerd.
You don't have to,
but yes,
you don't have to talk about it anymore.
Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. yes, it was. Come on, that was early 2000s. You had to play Baldur's Gate.
Yeah,
had to.
Oh, come on, they were brilliant games.
It was gorgeous. Yeah, they were.
Hand painted,
except Knowles. Hated
maps,
Knowles.
every single one. Well, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
but like every single screen on it, like the maps were loaded separately, and each one was hand painted. They were gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. I just never. Not that I didn't like it. I just never took the time. I didn't. None of my friends were in it.
It's pretty much disintegrated, but I've still got the first edition D&D box set.
Oh, wow.
Not AD&D, the red box.
I think I've still got the blue expert set somewhere.
Nice.
Yeah. Is that a little dating right there?
Yeah. Okay, so you do know.
Yeah, I do. I played Gamma
All right,
World.
somebody talk about this thing that I never actually... Oh, Gamma World.
Oh.
There you go. Got the Baldur's Gate.
Look at how many
set.
CDs.
Yeah. And a manual.
Yeah.
Oh.
And a map. Wait, does it have a map?
Hey, that was the fastest way to ship.
Well, that's what I'm looking
That was
for. I think the map is actually up on my wall here somewhere.
Nice.
You can see the CompUSA sticker for $49.99 on here still.
Nice.
Perhaps.
Oh, at a discount.
Which is $200 in today's prices.
Probably.
Well, I got
Have
nothing.
seen better days.
You guys keep too many CDs.
Well, that's okay.
in
Now you
arm's
can
reach.
talk about a game I have never actually bothered to play and have no interest in because I tried to play the second one. And the third time I crossed the exact same bridge, just going a different way, I said, screw this and stopped playing.
Oh,
I have
well,
the original Brady game
Is that a
strategy
cheat guy?
along with it.
Very
it's a
nice.
strategy.
Good God, man.
Hey, the guy I bought this from included everything.
all right. Well, as Sebastian
I needed
follows
that
his
for the
strategy
Dragonlance one to realize that my game had gotten into an unwinnable condition, but I didn't need it for Baldur's Gate.
All right, real quick.
You can't win.
Let's finish up here. All right, so our second of three quick game announcements is that Halo. So as if you've been following, Microsoft is bringing the Halo Master Chief Collection to PC, but they're doing it one game at a time. So if you go out and like buy the whole collection, you're getting access to the games as they become available. The first was Reach, and now Halo Combat Evolved, the very first game, which was available on PC and Mac for that matter at its launch. Has been released. It's the anniversary edition. You can pick it up on the Windows Game Store or at Steam. And it's $10 for the individual game. Or like I said, if you go and buy that collection, Master Chief Collection, you'll get access to this as well right now. From what we've seen, I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but there were some issues with Reach, particularly audio issues. Like there was the audio quality was just like real poor, unusually poor. And apparently that's not the case from what I've read thus far with this one. So it seems to be running well, and it's a fun classic. Unlike Jeremy, this was the game we played when I got to college and we all had our Xboxes. This was the game that brought us together in 2001.
I like the original Mac version, Jim. I have that on CD.
Well, sure, and the Mac version was great too, but none of my friends had Macs back then. Fun trivia too. The Halo, before it was even this first-person game, that was Bungie was a Mac developer originally. And,
Descent.
And their very first preview, the first time Halo was publicly revealed,
that was a good game.
Mm-hmm. Marathon.
Descent 2? Or which one? Which one are you talking about?
The Marathon series is the one I remember most for the Mac. But yeah, when Bungie showed off,
and Descent 2 I preferred,
video of Halo, it was running on a Mac, and everybody was just like, how is this only going to be offered on Mac? And then suddenly Microsoft bought them all up and put it on Xbox and PC. Well, Xbox and then DirectX 9.
All right, and then let's wrap up with our final game announcement, which was an unusual teaser or leak, I guess, a data mining.
It was an oopsie.
Bot. Yeah, they accessed some assets.
No, this is the PlayStation Network bot.
Oh, is that what? Okay,
that's been in existence for a couple of months now. Sort of accidentally mentioned that there's a new Star Wars game coming out for PlayStation 4. Unfortunately, all we have is this screenshot that's sitting right in front of you there, which shows you an Imperial Star Destroyer of Imperator class, I suspect, but it's hard to tell, and a couple of X-Wings flying at it. That's not a good idea if you want to live through the gaming session, but yeah, go for it. Because it could maybe mean that we're going to get a flyer again. Another fighter sim in the Star Wars universe that we haven't had for so bloody long. I don't even remember how to play flight sims anymore, more or less. Wouldn't that be a lovely thing? This is most likely
TIE Fighter,
EA Motive.
TIE Fighter.
TIE Fighter and X-Wing was good too.
It was the best. No, TIE Fighter was, anyway. Sorry.
Flying TIE Fighter was insane.
Well, yeah, so it's Project Maverick, according to the screenshot. Project Maverick. And so we don't know if that's its working title or if that's the eventual title. We know.
Well, EA Motive, they've been working on an unnamed game, and they say it's going to be a little bit different, which is very helpful. So this is most likely what it is. Again, we have freaking no idea. We still know there's going to be a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, but just come on and don't do the Star Wars Battlefields. Yeah, you've kind of got a space sim combat for a little bit, and then you land on the station and it turns into a bag of garbage again. I really hope that this is going to be what I hope it is.
Space combat, yes, please.
Well, it's funny because they had, I think it was shortly after EA got the license to the games, that there was or was it Disney? Because I know they split responsibility over the complexity of the games. And there was a fighter, like a very simplistic looking space fighter game that got canned. And that was probably 5 years ago now. But we'll see. I have.
Well, and then there was Star Wars 1313, which looked fucking gorgeous.
But that looked like it was going to be like an RPG.
And Disney killed that
style.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was about the time that the mouse was moving in.
All right, so Star Wars Project Maverick. All right, let's get our reviews done, and we'll start with Sebastian. Did both of these reviews. We'll start with the gosh, I always can't pronounce this company. Scythe.
Just think of the icy scythe of death.
Okay, Scythe Mugen.
I am.
It's the Mugen 5, and in fact, we looked at a Mugen 5 last year. I looked at one last year. That was the tough gaming version. This is an update with ARGB, so there's multi-zone lighting in the fans and the top LED panel. For audio listeners, this is a large single tower air CPU cooler with dual fans, and it's kind of unusual. The top of it is a plastic lighted panel with addressable RGB lighting that can sync with not just your motherboard, but with the two fans that it comes with, which also have ARGB. And all of this links together with some somewhat messy cables that you can either use a hand ARGB controller that it comes with or connect it to an available motherboard header. Kent actually did all of this for us and took some beautiful photos to go along with this if you check it out on the site. But basically, I didn't have this in hand to actually compare them directly, but he said that it looks like they've refined it a little bit from the previous version. The base plate is what he was the most impressed with, because he said that the machine marks were very, very faint, could be barely discerned, but basically on par with the best of what we see from like Noctua, etc. And I really think that Scythe does as good a job as anybody with the mounting and the actual base plate. The basics. They get the basics right, even though it's not the flashiest. They're somewhat more utilitarian as far as the actual mounting hardware compared to Noctua, for example. But the actual pressure you get against the CPU is probably higher than any other that I've used. It's one of those where you almost want to back off when you're screwing it in, because you can kind of warp your PCB. But the performance with these coolers, and Kent tested these against the coolers he had on hand, like a little group of 5 here with a Ryzen 7 3800X, and it was second only to the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 3 that he has, and they only trailed by 2 degrees under load. We're talking loads of 58C with that Ryzen processor in a room that was 24C ambient, and the Dark Rock Pro 3 could do 56. Not a lot separate the top 3 here in the review. The Scythe Fuma Rev B was 60 degrees under the same conditions, and then the Wraith Prism, the stock cooler for that CPU, was 64. So you're getting a drop of 6 degrees at full load under the stock cooler. And really, this is the size of this cooler, especially, and how quiet it is. These are very quiet. Like Scythe makes very quiet stuff. It relies more on, like I said, the mounting hardware and the connection to the CPU. This one, kind of in the middle of the pack with his noise testing, looks like the fans actually can spin quite high. So depending on what your fan profile is, you could get this one up to 47 dB, where in comparison, under the same conditions with his noise testing equipment, 52.3 dB for the Wraith Prism. So it's still a lot quieter than the stock cooler. I don't find the Wraith Prism to be all that loud. So I wonder, I'll have to talk to him and see what kind of weighting is possibly being used on the SPL meter, because these numbers look high, but equipment varies. Some people test with 1 meter over another, and there's all different ways of measuring noise. But basically, better and quieter than stock, adds a bunch of style with the ARGB. I don't know. I think some people are really into the RGB thing. I think this looks a lot nicer personally than the previous version. The Tough Gaming version, you're stuck with a single color. Does this excite anybody? The fact that there's multi-zone lighting on the top panel of a cooler? It's a $20 premium over the previous version, by the way. So it should be the same cooling performance, maybe slightly better, but mostly you're paying for 2 addressable RGB fans and an addressable RGB top plate. So this has a retail of $79.
Show us the cold plate again. That was a sexy bit.
Yeah, that's a great photo too. You just put a case screw on the cold plate so you could see just the mirror finish. And it looks great. It looks like
just a hint of machining.
Yes.
It reminds me of something Josh and I once saw.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Lord.
Is this can we share this story?
It involved a piano. It involved a piano at CES.
Oh, yeah. Put solid blocks of metal on this piano. That was a grand piano.
They were showing us how
finish black. Oh Lord, they left so many.
I mean, they're showing us the cooler
piano. It wasn't even funny.
Oh no, it wasn't. But they're showing us because look at the reflection off the piano and the piano onto the Thermaltake cooler, and see how there's nothing marring either of them. Clunk, scrape.
Oh.
Yeah, it was so much. Yeah,
that's bad.
It really was. It was almost as bad as the sex sling in the TSMC room.
Okay.
They had the DJ and the
that was a brilliant transition for you, Jim, to our next review.
What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Well, if you want additional RGB lights in your sex dungeon, check out the Scythe Mugen 5 ARGB. Gold Award.
Hey,
I apologize. I started this. I said Sebastian did this review. As he pointed out, this was Kent Burgess. So I apologize. Thank you, Kent, for this review. And let's say hello to Rainey, the Walrith Cat guest.
Hey, Rainey.
Who's that? She's the one who's been bugging me.
Oh.
Goes underneath my chair, starts pawing at me. What are you doing, Rainey? What is that? What is that up there?
Okay, well, if only I could figure out what the latency problem is. But all right, let's wrap up the reviews here. Now, this one Sebastian did do because he's got it behind him there.
I do.
And this is the.
Oh, I thought that was a laundry basket.
Oh no!
This is the.
Oh no!
The InWin ALICE.
It's that and more.
So what's going on with this thing?
Well, you have to think about your case a little bit differently with the Alice. It's fashion forward, as we say in the biz. Think about, if you're listening on audio, imagine either a small laundry hamper or perhaps something cobbled together out of a couple of plastic milk crates. And you have the beginnings of what the Alice looks like. It's tall and it's very light. It's mostly made out of plastic. It has metal on the inside that actually hold your motherboard and other components in place and actually add to the rigidity of the overall construction quite a bit. This thing is way out there. It's so different. I called it in the review startlingly different and ruggedly utilitarian. My own words. It's pretty fantastic for an 8-pound, $55 case. Like that's really light. It's surprisingly strong. And it basically is a super rugged, like, cage for your open test system inside. And actually, recently, last week, I dropped an open test bench. And if it had been inside of this thing, I wouldn't have an unsightly gash in the side of my motherboard PCB right now. So if you do nothing else with this, if you're actually shopping for an open test bench, I don't think you're going to do better than this for less than $100. It's fantastic as a test bench. What's interesting about it, and what you'll see first and foremost, because this is how InWin is marketing it, all these different vibrant colors they offer of fabric covers. The whole thing, there's a tube of stretchy fabric that it comes with, and by default, it's a gray polyester fabric, and they're showing anything, every color of the rainbow, basically.
Can you use it as a tube top if in summertime?
You can. Oh, you absolutely can. You'd have to modify it slightly. See, the base of it is a mesh, and the mesh allows the
perfect, because that'll show off my nipples really nicely.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I tried wearing it earlier, and the openings for each leg do actually fit over your arms.
Yes, but does it chafe?
But
surprisingly, no. It's a softer material. It's all polyester, but it does have a soft kind of feel to it. I haven't tried.
So you're recommending the delicate cycle?
I definitely, and put it in a delicates bag if you have a larger one, just to be on the safe side.
It's unfortunate that you did not have that installed on the case right now, because I would ask you to start taking it down and off while singing. My
only complaint, really, and actually I was sloppy. I was so excited to get to the components within that I ripped it when I was removing the cover last night. So
that's a private moment.
As long as you apologize to her.
But this is your complete test bench inside of a plastic cage. So it all fits in there. The one thing I'll say is that graphics cards are limited to 11.8 inches in length. The longer GPUs, like this XFX card, I have a picture of it here in the review. This didn't actually fit. I was trying to demonstrate that because this is almost a 13-inch long card, it was sitting on the storage panel. So unless you remove the storage panel, you have to limit yourself to under 12-inch long cards, which is most cards. And reference cards are like 10.5 inches long. So that's not an issue. This is the next biggest card I had that did fit. It's the XFX Thick 2, not the Thick 3 cooler. So it fit. And you can see around back, there's first of all, there's a panel your PSU actually screws into. It's going to be hard to see because it's black, and so is the PSU. But then that sits behind the storage tray, and you have plenty of room back here for your cable mess or whatever else you want to fit back here. But it actually, the build process is painless. The design is good. It's got this plastic lid, which has like a recessed top, which ended up being kind of like a useful thing to throw like.
It is a laundry hamper.
It basically is. And it works as a case just fine if you have the fabric cover in place. It does add to the temps. I mean, they picture it with triple fans on the bottom and a single fan up top. That's the maximum configuration. You can do up to 360 on the bottom, 120 on top. I didn't put any extra fans in it. I just wanted to see how it would do with just the components installed as it came. And it added About 8 degrees to the GPU under load and 15 degrees to the CPU. The CPU suffered a little bit more because it was further down in the case and it wasn't, right up at the top like the GPU was to expel air. So, it does
even
add
fully
to
clothed
temps.
Even fully clothed, it leaves nothing to the imagination.
That's true. You can see right through it, depending on the lighting. And if you have RGB components inside, you're not hiding anything.
Right. But you were extolling the virtues of the CPU temps.
I was just going to say that I really should have added temps with fans, so I can still do that. But this is a case where if you're going to use it 24/7 with the fabric cover on it, you absolutely need to be using intake and exhaust fans, just like they do in all of their promo shots.
But isn't that going to make her look fat because it bulges?
No comment. The only thing actually that I was a little leery of with the cover is that the power supply will be behind a cover. So intake will be through fabric and exhaust will be through fabric for the power supply no matter what. So if I were to change anything about the design, it would maybe be to reorient it so it was maybe a little bit longer than tall and have the PSU up top as well. So it was also pushing air out the top. Seems to make more sense, but they did it this way. It works. I personally think it's a better deal as a test bench anyway, but for $55, it's freaking rugged and you can do a lot with it. I just like the idea of my test system being in a protective cage. So that's one thing I don't like about the open top test benches. It's the only thing that I've ever had that came close to its usefulness as a test bench was my old Dymastech, the Easy Bench Table 2.5, I think is the one that I have. And it was a taller open test bench that had space for your PSU, all your storage, everything underneath. And then you could put the motherboard on top. This basically does the same thing, except the whole thing can be enclosed. And those Dymastechs actually shipped with a fabric cover too. It was just like an optional thing you could add to your order. So it's like the same concept. The cover is a little bit harder to get on and off, unless you were to you could custom make a slightly bigger one. It's quite tight, even though it's a stretchy fabric. The band that holds it in place at the top of the case is very tight. So getting it up, because you have to start it from the bottom and stretch it all the way up to the top of the case. So you would not want to do it. I did it once. I did it a second time for thermal testing, and I was done with it at that point. So, but I mean, it's $55 for. Just look on Amazon right now for cheap open test benches, and you're going to see that they get expensive.
They're not $55.
No,
right.
They get 100, 160. The Dymastech I bought was like 169. They go up to like 249. These aluminum ones that I inherited from the old office, you can kind of see that. I think these are like 130 to 180 each. And they basically just hold a motherboard and a PSU underneath. There's not a whole lot. You can add storage to the side of it if you want to, but you run out of space fast because they're so small. But it really depends on what you have space for. But it's unique. They did something different and it worked.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're looking for a very unique case or just a good value on a very functional test bench, I should say, InWin ALICE, and you can taste the rainbow.
Get anything you want.
I agree with the chat. A zipper would be the ultimate mod for this. I need to get a hold of somebody who can use a sewing machine and say, I need you to make me a tube top. It's not for me. It's for Alice. And Alice is my case. By the way, there are some hilarious low-key puns peppered throughout the review. So definitely read it and try to find them if you can.
All right. Let me queue up our picks of the week here, make sure everything's in order. All right. It looks like it is. Okay. So we'll jump into our picks of the week and wrap up this train wreck for the delay, because it seems like the delay is getting worse and I have no idea why. But I
apologize. It's because I'm here.
No, I mean,
yeah, I was
yours is fine. Sebastian's fine.
Yeah.
It's Josh and Jeremy that I'm noticing at least, but picks of the week. Mine is something that I had seen this guy's videos before just browsing around, but our old friend Alan Malventano, we maintain a friend chat, basically. It's an old Slack channel that we used to use when we were all at PC Per, and then now that they're not, we just use it for personal, like, keep in touch stuff. And he posted a video. It's a link to a YouTube channel called Jim Browning. And there's a lot of these channels out there that go after scammers, the people who call you and claim to be from Microsoft tech support, or the ones who put up, they compromise ads and cause the screen to go into a fake blue screen and tell you you must call Microsoft now. And then they either straight up hack you or they sell you very expensive, unnecessary software. And I mean, I would assume and hope nobody that's probably listening to this show has been victim to it, but we probably know people who, if they haven't been victim, they're susceptible to this kind of crap. And so you got guys like this who make these people's lives hell. And this guy is incredible. And so he has a ton of videos. And then this particular one, he worked with the BBC on a sort of a mini documentary that actually resulted in the people running this particular operation out of India getting arrested. And it's because this one was special because he was able to find access to their IP security camera system. So he's calling these people and he's watching them as they try to scam him, because he runs virtual machines and doesn't, he's tricking them and either wasting their time or trying to get more information. And what he does is technically illegal, and he admits that because he's hacking them. But at the same time, I want to see how long a prosecutor lasts who tries to go after him for what he's doing. He has found customer logs on these computers and proactively reached out to the victims, trying to get them restitution. And it's very hard because the Indian government and the Indian law enforcement, despite their best efforts, it's hard for them to find the victims in another country. And so it's interesting to watch how he works. There's a lot of channels that do this, and some of them are clickbaity, and some of them, they're more personality driven, where people are wearing crazy outfits and using sound effects and all that. This guy is just straight professional, very interesting. He puts so much time and effort into mapping out and trying to identify all the people involved. So check it out. It's the YouTube channel Jim Browning. And in this particular video, there's also a link here to the BBC video that he contributed to. And he has a Patreon as well. So if you find this interesting, you find the work that he's doing valuable, please check that out as well. So pretty interesting stuff. Giving justice to these scumbags who pull this shit. But all right, next up is Jeremy. What have you got for us?
I had to change my pick because I totally forgot about this until now, and we have to talk about this beautiful, gorgeous piece of clothing. There is no way you can possibly live without a Noctua hoodie. Yeah, I had to change it. I had to change it. I'm sorry.
Hang on.
Oh,
it was a last minute thing.
Hang on.
Thank you,
but
Jeremy. This would have been forgotten.
We were talking about this.
Yes.
And
there
you have to know that this exists. Behold it in all of its gorgeousness. For those of you who are on the audio channel, it is a hoodie in the perfect Noctua brown with a symbol and some very large white pull tabs for the hoodie. But it's just unbelievable, and it will keep you nice and cool or warm as you prefer. It's available in a wide variety of color. It's, by that I mean, the two colors that Noctua offers, the brown and the gray. If you get the gray, you're wrong. It just, I can't believe that this came out earlier this week. I think it was Wednesday that someone decided that they would put this out there, and I am so tempted to buy one. I hate hoodies. I have long hair. Hoodies don't work. But
isn't this more the color of the corner bumpers? It's not really the color of the fan, with the fan blades, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, the fan blades itself,
and the corner bumpers.
It's the.
Well, Brett, the embedded color profile of these images on Amazon is not necessarily completely color accurate to the final product.
My monitor may not be fully ICC corrected. If you could just send me one of those pucks over, I could probably fix that up, and then we could be sure.
All right, let's wrap this up. Josh, go.
That's
Sorry, I had to
thick.
unmute. I didn't know these things existed. They're thick mats because, I've got carpet in my office. Don't know why. Probably shouldn't, but anyway.
I hate to say it, Josh.
And
it's thicker than mine.
I usually go through about one of these things a year because they start cracking. They just, big holes develop in them, and you're rolling around and your wheel gets stuck in one of these holes that go down to the... No, this is a massive and 14-pound thick piece of, I don't know what the heck kind of plastic it is. It is crystal clear. It's heavy. I'm 250 pounds, and the wheels don't really even dent this thing. It's lovely. And for $55, which is about the price of, a usual, you go to Staples and you get one of their high quality ones. This really is massive, and I got one and I love it because it doesn't bend.
Well, my pick is something I was going to use on the podcast tonight, but the microphone interface didn't want to agree with me. It's this thing that you can kind of see, not the microphone, the arm. I was looking for a good quality boom arm that would attach to a desk, and the reviews and reputation of the really cheap ones is very poor, and I needed something that would actually hold a heavy mic in place and the arm wouldn't sag over time. This got the best reviews of all the cheaper ones. This is $40 for the smaller version and $50 for the one that I got that's a 38-inch reach. And it's great. It does exactly what they said it was going to do. It's quiet when you adjust it. You don't hear those loud spring sounds. And it holds even a heavy mic without falling over the course of the day. So it's the Samson MBA38, which, if you're looking around on Amazon, it's the Amazon's choice for a boom arm for a mic for about $50. And it compares very favorably to something like the Rode, which is over $100, and you get into some pretty pricey territory with the Pro desk mounts for mics, but this does a very good job for $50.
Would you rather have a mounting arm or a thick mat?
Mounting arm.
Why not both?
True. I'm that person who puts the rollerblade wheels on my desk chair, though, so I don't worry as much about the mat.
It's a good upgrade. Very good upgrade.
It doesn't surprise me very much.
Okay, Brett, your picks.
I'm going to walk right up to that demonetization line and step right on it. So I think the very first thing that we've got to do, and this is a combo one here. So the first thing you want to do is you want to check out to see, hey, what areas am I going to need to go to soon that may be canceled? So there's this website, which is isitcanceledyet.com. And I think this is the internet is now calling this, well, there's a couple people calling this the human malware situation. So you're looking through all these things that you may be attending. Is it canceled? Is it canceled? So if you got something out in front of you that you think you're going to go to, definitely check this site before you head to the virus-infested airport or train station. Before you go there and then figure out that the large gathering that you're headed to is sadly canceled or maybe happily canceled.
Google reader, yes. Chris Matthews, yes.
Chris Matthews, yes.
Yes,
And
exactly.
Coachella, sadly, no.
Right. So the site is shockingly up to date, as in within the last 48 hours or so. So yeah, this guy is on point. But in close conjunction with this is the reason why this site exists is this very educational website that I'd like to bring up next. And please, if you're in a participating country, definitely go download this, and you can kind of get an eyes-on overlook as to what the heck is going on with your favorite virus. And you can figure out how to, urge it along for a higher score if you're so inclined. This is for educational purposes only. So I don't know why people have, banned it in certain countries. Definitely go try this. I've got like a 6,000 high score going, and I did just download the zombie pack. So I'm going to have some fun with that later.
Of course, this
Definitely
is
go
Plague
try it out.
Inc., the very popular game available on like pretty much every platform.
Yeah, I've been playing it on iOS, actually. So
it's always Madagascar. They always
the
survive
perfect
on
place to get the
Madagascar.
plague is your phone.
Well, actually, the tutorial has the plague starting in China.
Imagine that.
I don't know. No, that's what a coincidence.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the show for this week. I apologize for the technical issues. It's been deteriorating before my eyes. Like Jeremy's audio went out of sync, and then Josh's happened, and it started getting worse. And then Sebastian's audio started popping. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm very sorry for that. I'll try to have it cleaned up as best I can in post. But if not, just close your eyes, which you should do anyway. Close your eyes and picture Linus or something. I don't know. But
close your eyes and I'll miss you. Tomorrow, I'll kiss you. Words to live by.
But thanks, everyone, for joining us this week. And we'll be back next week, Wednesday, Thursday. Who knows? But we'll be there. And we hope to see you then. Thanks.